Hello, everybody.
Nobody's on.
How do I tell? Hmm? Oh, too bad. That's so when they get on, they'll see that.
No, they're looking at you now. It's a delay. So just keep looking at the screen.
Okay.
Two people on. There's someone else on. Reagan's in. Reagan's watching.
Hi, Reagan. I'm waiting for my audience to arrive.
Okay, so there's a delay. So just kind of hang out.
All right.
Okay, someone else just joined. Sage is watching. You got three.
Huh?
Sage is on now.
Okay, you can't talk to me. You gotta
Okay.
go in the other room. So I'm not distracted. Okay, I am ready to get started with my talk tonight up on movement. So I think I'm going to wait just 2 more minutes and then I'm going to go ahead and get started, and people will just jump on when they are available. And if people don't catch it now, then hopefully they can catch it after we've completed it. All right, so let's get started. My name is Michaeline Kearney, and I am an occupational therapist who specializes in sensory processing. And I am also the owner of Children in Motion Therapy Services, which is located in Peachtree Corner, Georgia. I have the fortunate opportunity to visit a number of schools and work for them in a consultative role, and then work with children individually, as well as working with children in my clinic in Peachtree Corners, and I now have a satellite office in Sandy Springs. And one thing that I'm always talking about and training parents and collaborating with teachers is how to use movement to activate the brain and help the children do their best learning. And in tonight's little segment, I really wanted to focus on teachers in the classroom. Teachers are at the forefront. They have a huge job to educate our children. Our children are coming in tired and hungry, and they've had too much screen time, or they've not had enough playtime, and with all of that, they still have to teach them and find a way to make the learning meaningful and stick. And I'm here to talk about how you can use movement in the classroom and help the children do their best learning, help them increase their on-task behavior, and ultimately just be successful and be ferocious learners and inquisitive and learn all that there is to learn. So one way to do that is to provide movement in the classroom. Hi Beth, I'm so happy you joined on. I just started talking about movement in the classroom and how important it is and what a big tool it can be for teachers. Movement is very important to the brain and brain development. It helps wake the brain up. Hi Dana. Movement helps wake the brain up, just like you have a computer and you're working on it, you're moving the mouse, you're moving the keys, and then you go get a cup of coffee or you go to the bathroom, and then what happens? The screensaver comes on, the computer went to sleep. And the same thing happens with children's brains when they're not moving. And moving, just like we move the mouse, just like we move the keys to wake the computer up and get it back on track and working, the same thing happens with children. Interestingly enough, movement also increases the oxygen level to key parts of the brain to help with the functioning, the registration of information and the processing of that information. We also know that movement increases our heart rate, it increases our circulation, and therefore it increases our performance. So there's lots of science to movement. We know that when children have enough movement and the right kind of movement, that they're less fidgety, excuse me, they're focused on learning, and they just have an overall positive attitude. Hi Karen, I'm so glad you joined me tonight. So with that said, movement is powerful, and it really does increase our absorption and our processing and our learning. And the question is, how do we use movement in the classroom? When I'm talking with teachers, I like to group movement into three main categories: alerting movement, calming movement, and then organizing movement. And it's not uncommon for me to mention movement to teachers, and they're like, I don't know, that's going to make them rowdy, they're going to get distracted, they're going to be loud, I'm going to have a hard time bringing them back in. And that is exactly what happens with alerting activities. It wakes up the brain, it increases the energy, it also is a good release of stress. These kiddos have a lot of work to do, they're sitting for long periods of time, they're having to work their brain, do hard work, and that creates stress. Even good stress, it still creates stress. So alerting activities, big movement activities will help release that stress in their body. So alerting movement looks like fast movement, big movements, not necessarily predictable or organized movements. It's running, it's playing tag, jumping jacks, spinning, twirling. Those are all examples of alerting movement, where we're waking the brain up, we're opening up the senses, and the children just come alive and the world is huge. The next category of moving activities I will call calming, and that's exactly what they do. The calming activities change the energy with the child and in the classroom. It helps slow their breathing down. It narrows their focus of attention. It makes them more available for learning. Typically, it looks like slow, controlled movement. Small movement, deep pressure, deep breathing. A lot of times we'll have children close their eyes. Hi, Julie. Thanks for joining. You did it. You figured it out. So did I. So we're both doing a good job. All right, calming activities. A lot of times we'll have children close their eyes so they can shut off some of the stimulating environment, visual environment, and they can pay attention to their breathing, their muscles, their body. And with that, then we have a more focused attention with the children. And that looks like with walking slowly, walking in slow motion, taking deep breaths. Stretching is a good calming activity. Using sustained positions, be a statue, stand on one leg, do a warrior pose where we're really controlling and holding on to a specific movement. And then it's just general breathing exercises. Breathe in, hold it, 2, 3, 4, 5, relax, blow it out. So the third category of movement is what I call organizing movement. And this movement helps to encourage sequential skills, knowing what to do first, what to do second, how to move from one step to the next step, not only physically, but also from a language standpoint. What's the first part of the story? What's at the end of the story? What's in the middle? It also promotes problem solving. If you're going to be a problem solver, you need to consider all of the information, you need to identify the problem, and you need to explore different options. And organizing activities help get the brain in a good place to do that kind of work. And it also improves retrieval of information. I mean, how many times have you guys worked with a child and you're like, I know it's in there, I just can't get it out? Well, sometimes it's in there, but there's not, the disorganization of the brain is impeding its ability to work and to cut through. So retrieval can be a big problem. Well, some of the activities that I would classify as organizing would include chewing gum, some line dancing, rhythmical moving patterns, swaying back and forth or forward and backwards. I think I missed, I'm trying to think, I feel like I missed something. Organizing activities have a rhythm, they have a beat, and it's predictable and it's repetitive. So there are the 3 different types of movement. Depending on what movement you use will determine your outcome. So Julie says I'm frozen on her screen. Hopefully it's just a problem with the connection and it'll catch up in just a second. If not, I'll do a personal tutoring session with you, Julie. You know a lot of this stuff anyway. So let's talk about how to use movement. You can use movement in a scheduled setup, in a scheduled routine. You can do morning moves at the beginning of the day to get everybody in a good place, get them ready to do the learning. You can do movement, you can schedule movement in the transitions between subjects, when you move in and out of the classroom, or between subject matter. After recess is a great time to have some scheduled movement. I know, they've been outside, they've been moving, so why do you need to move in the classroom? Well, you want to use some of those calming and organizing movements to get them back on track and get them ready to do that focused learning that I talked about earlier. Another way that you can put movement in the classroom is by embedding it within the curriculum. Excuse me. And basically what that is you're just combining movement activities with the academic activities. And that's really easy to do that in the earlier grades because a lot of the activities are interactive, physically manipulative, and it's easy to do that. It gets a little trickier when you're in the middle school years and the high school, but it still can be done. So let me see. All right, I have some time that I wanted to just throw some ideas out there for some movement. These are just ideas. This is not the only activity or the only ideas to do. And in fact, usually what happens is I collaborate with some teachers on a particular child or a particular situation. I throw out some ideas, and then the teacher takes it and runs and comes up with a great idea that I just couldn't envision. So these are ideas to get you started, and then I encourage you when you come up with some original ideas and they really work in the classroom, I just love for you to share that with me so that I can increase my learning, and then I have an opportunity to share that with other people. So let's talk about some ideas on how to put movement in the classroom. Please jump in and give me your ideas as well. This can be an interactive type of dialogue here. All right, so one idea is to use a movement jar or a movement pail, and I have one right here. This is my little movement pail, and inside it I have listed activities on paper. So you can have this located in a convenient place in your classroom, and then you can direct children to go to it. It can be a center, part of your centers that you rotate through, or it could be in an area that you would direct the children to when you see that they're becoming a little distracted or dysregulated and can use some help. And so I put a few samples in here, and this one says do 10 donkey kicks. So a donkey kick is when you stand up and you place both hands flat, palms down on the desk or the table. So you're leaning on the table, and then you just kind of kick a leg out. And you can, kick left, and then you can kick right, or you can try to do 2 at the same time. And that is a great activity because there's some movement that's going on, and there's also some hard muscle work. So it keeps the children moving, but keeps them still in control. And I have different, let's see, what else do I have in here? I did that one. I have hop on one foot 10 times, hop on the other foot 10 times. I have do 5 jumping jacks, and the last one, walk like a duck and then walk like a bear. So those are just a few examples for the movement jar. So for pre-K, generally speaking, we'll see like different animal walks in there, walk on your tippy toes, crawl from this table to that table, or just jump off the floor. So for kindergarten, first grade, second grade, we can be a little bit more specific. Jump 3 times, jump 10 times, hop 2 times, and then jump 3 times, stand on 1 foot, do a jumping jack. Children, they vary when they're able to do jumping jacks. So if some of the children can't do a jumping jack, it's no problem. You can just tell them how to modify it. Put your hands on your hip, and then you just jump your feet together, feet apart, feet together, feet apart. Or you could have them stand with their feet together, and they could put their hands down their sides and then lift them up over their head and then come down to their sides. Again, it's still providing movement, so it's still a good activity. For middle school or upper learning, high school, we can have them jumping while they're completing a math problem, while they're spelling vocabulary words or giving the definition of vocabulary words. I worked with a middle school teacher several years ago, and we came up with a 30-second jar. Basically, it's a movement jar, but there's a number of activities that the student could pick from, and it only takes 30 seconds. And it could be something like doing windmills, doing some head rolls, stretching your neck, jump in place, do some chair push-ups where you put your hands underneath your legs and then you push up so you can lift your bottom up off the chair, and then you release it back on the chair. Toe touches, stretching up to the sky, do some side stretches, you get the idea. Even breathing exercises. Do some arm circles where you hold your arms out here and then you do little circles, or you could do big circles. That's good. It doesn't seem like a lot of movement, but it definitely is activating some movement and some muscle work on the shoulders. So again, those are some ideas. You could do a movement circuit in the classroom where you have designated locations throughout the room that have a specific activity. The goal is for the movement circuit to be independent. Of course, there's a little learning curve. You need to introduce and show the activities to all the kids, but you could have a line on the floor by a wall where they jump back and forth. And then there could be a location over by the door which says jump and tap a spot on the wall. They could go to a chair that's at the other end of the room, and they could hold a weighted ball or a medicine ball, and they could hold it up and they could count to 10 and release it, and hold it up and count to 10 and release it. They could crawl, they could walk backwards. Again, and then you could use that as number one when a child finishes a directed activity, and then they could go through the circuit and then head back to the carpet or back to their table for the next center, the next activity. You could also use it as you see a child who is becoming dysregulated, having a harder time following directions, being distracted, and you could say, oh, looks like you need a brain break or a movement break. You can go do the circuit and then meet us back here, just as an example. A movement center kind of works the same way. It's just, usually it's in a rotation of a themed activity. It's just in one place. You'd have a basket or a bucket with all the materials needed, some index cards that could be attached to a ring, and they can pick a card, do the activity, pick another card, do the activity. I think seating is a really good way that you could get movement into the classroom. And let's see if I can show you a few things. All right. All right, so this is not going to work. Hold on. I messed it up. Huh?
Here.
Sorry, guys.
I'll hold it.
Okay. All right, so let me show you. I have a rocking chair. That is a good way to get some rhythmical, predictable rocking for organizing. This particular rocking chair is made so it does not rock so far back like some of the traditional rocking chairs. The center of base is a little bit different, so it's good. So the kids aren't rocking and then tipping themselves backwards. So that's a good option to get some movement in the classroom. This could be the thinking chair, not the timeout chair, but it could be a thinking chair if a child's having a hard time coming up, generating ideas. This is just an option that they could sit in the thinking chair and you guys could talk about it. You could give them some prompts, and perhaps this would help organize and get that information out of their brain. I also have some cushions. I know these are pretty common. Here's a disc cushion. Now the trick is I go into classrooms and I see these full, like a half dome, and that's too much air. You just want a little bit of air in, so when you sit down you can feel it moving, but you're not having to work on your balance at the same time. These are good for on the carpet or in a chair. And here's another version, the wedge chair, the wedge cushion. This actually needs a little more air in it, but it tips them forward a little bit, and that's a good option for some of the children. Let me move this out of the way. Here's a ball chair that I love. It's a little on the pricey side, but it's great because it's very sturdy, and there's a little ball in here and they can sit on it and they can kind of rock back and forth, move around, And when they stand up, the ball isn't rolling around or away from them, so that's good. Sometimes we use a T-stool. Now this one I use when I'm working on balance, so it is a bit of a challenge, but there are other T-stools out there. Core Stool is the brand name of one that has a wider base, so it provides some movement, but it's not a major balancing challenge. And then I want to show you this. I know I'm out of time. I want to show you this very cool chair. I just got it. It's called How to Hug, and it works on the floor, or it can work in a chair. And what you do is you sit in it. Let's see, I don't know if you'll be able to tell. You sit in it, and these slats kind of curve, and it really kind of gives you a hug. And you can sit on the floor, and you can rock back and forth. You can even tip yourself back. All right, I have a little problem with my chair here. And it's very sturdy, lots of back support, so the kids can read a book and they can kind of rock and tilt, or they can be tilting and back here and rocking while they're listening. But they're in control, they're not falling over on anybody. Good idea. So that's an option. So those are a few options of seating choices to help create that movement in the classroom.
Ask any question.
Okay, so I could talk forever. I'm sorry, but I'm not going to talk anymore. I'm going to ask if anybody has any questions or if they have any feedback or ideas they would like to share. I do have a freebie for you guys. I need you to email me or text me if you would like that freebie, and then I can get it to you. I'm still working on my technical savvy skills here, but I do have it. Sage made a beautiful little handout, and it highlights the 5 different ideas for movement. You know, I didn't talk about yoga or stretches, but that's another great way. Huh?
Why not talk about it? Why not?
That's a great way to get some calming movement in, and there's lots of things on YouTube, and you can use on the interactive board. And it's not, with the yoga, it's not that it has to be perfect. It just, they just need to try, they just need to explore their bodies, and it's inherently calming, even if the activity is not, or the stance not completely perfect. And the last thing I want to mention while I'm waiting to see if anybody has any questions is that we just can't underestimate the benefit of breathing exercises. It is considered movement. You are moving your rib cage, the intercostal muscles in your rib cage. You're raising your shoulders, using your diaphragm. It's great movement. It would fall into the category of calming and organizing, and we just don't realize how shallow we breathe, and we even hold our breath when we're working hard. And by just focusing on breathing can really change our whole, the whole tone of our body. So that is what I have for you tonight. I hope that it was helpful. I love to collaborate with teachers and parents and come up with really good, functional, powerful ways to bring movement to the classroom to ultimately benefit the children so that they can be successful. If anybody's interested in joining a Facebook group on movement in the classroom, please reach out to me, and if I have enough interest, I thought that might be a good way that we could share ideas, we can take pictures, post ideas that we have, ask for some brainstorming or ideas from people, we can support one another and really work on bringing movement into the classroom so that the teachers can do what they need to do and the students can do what they need to do. Okay? I think that that's all I have for today. Thanks, everybody. Have a good evening.